Hello, my name is Dr. Tutu Odefoa. I'm a dentist. Um, I got introduced to the Synergy products in 2015 when I got them to try on my children. My children have autism and they suffered from quite a few digestive issues. Basically, they were either constipated or had diarrhea or they had a hard swollen belly or one thing or the other. And they also were always falling ill. And the ingredients in the product seemed like things that had been recommended for them to use. So I got the products and I started using them on myself first, just to check because I often do this. The first thing I noticed, the first effect I noticed on myself was that I've had joint pains for a long time. My knees used to hurt for quite some time, hurt and creak, and I had arthritis. And the pain from the arthritis was in all my joints, especially my hands, my wrists, my small fingers, my ankle, my toes, my knees, my hips. And I also had sciatica, which is the pain, nerve pain at the back. And this pain was really, really bad. It was so bad that I found it difficult to like write or, use a spoon and lift something heavy with the hands. Um, or walk up the stairs. My knees would always hurt. So the first effect I noticed was that this pain disappeared. This was the effect on myself. And then the other effect I noted was on my blood pressure. Proagi is designed for the cardiovascular system, and I actually was worried that it was going to um, reduce my blood pressure because I've always had low blood pressure, low to the point where I used to faint at times if I stood for too long. So what I noticed was that it actually normalized my blood pressure. So my blood pressure had always been, below 100, so maybe like 95, 50. But I think about 6 months into using Proagi, I had to do a series of tests for insurance, for medical insurance. And I noted my BP was 110/60, which it had never been really. Interestingly, it normalized it. So for me, yes, those were the two major things for myself. And as well, so I used the project and I also added the whole V3, and there was a whole host of other minor benefits all added together to ensure that right now I continue to use the project. I don't stop because if I stop, all my pains and aches come back, as well as extreme tiredness. I used to suffer from tiredness, exhaustion, but that's not really there anymore. For my children, I noted I started using mostly the Mystify for them because they were below 40 kilos. I didn't want to use the Proagi. And the first thing I noted was on their immune system. Basically, they stopped getting sick. They used to get sick all the time, one after the other. Every 2 weeks was one thing or the other. But they stopped. So when we've been a couple of weeks of using the Mystify for them, we basically stopped visiting the GP to the point where when we're all the time we're in Dublin, our GP didn't know. We only went there to fill forms and sign. Yeah, so they got, it really helped their immune system. They stopped falling sick. And even when they fell ill, which was really, really once in a while, if I would start the Vistiva immediately. And within a day or two, they'd be a lot better, which was not how it was used to be. The other thing, most notable thing with my children was that one of them had asthma, and the slightest dust, cold, pollen or anything, and he'd start to wheeze and then go in downward spiral from there, and he'd then have a chest infection, fever, and we'd have to use antibiotics and then start all over again. But that went away. That was the most notable thing, and that went away within a couple of months of starting the Mystify. I just realized that we weren't using the inhalers, we weren't using the nebulizer. We used to use nebulizer all the time. We weren't using nebulizer, and this was despite living in Dublin, which was wet and cold and grey all the time. So yeah, so those were the most notable effects on myself, the children. My husband also was told by his doctor he was pre-diabetic. His blood sugar was pretty high, and now he's been on it as well, and his blood sugar is more than normal, perfect figures right now. So yeah, those are the main. But there's so many other effects, that synergistic effects I'll call them, that little things here and there that all come together to make you feel a whole lot healthier, whole lot happier. So my whole family at this point is on it. One other thing I must note is that my father is 82, and he'd had cancer, he'd recovered, then he fell sick again, and it seemed like either the cancer had come back, and he was kind of on a downward spiral. He was losing his memory, he was his cognition, he became not so mobile, he needed a lot of help. But since he's been on the Proagi now, basically everybody asks, what is he doing? He's healthy, he's strong. In fact, he remembers everything, he knows everybody, he does things, a lot of things by himself. At one point, we actually had to take his phone away because it was so confused, and he seemed to be just giving his, he didn't understand. If you called him, he wouldn't know who was speaking. But that's all that is gone. So, and the man is, he's healthy, he's strong at the moment, he's walking around doing things by himself. So that was really very notable to me, because at some point I actually thought it seemed like, he was on his way out. But thankfully, this is like a year and a half on now, and he's stronger than he was, some years ago, 3 years ago. So yeah, those have been the effects of Proagi, the whole V3 system on myself and my family. We're not going to stop using it anytime soon, because the effects are, they're real. Yeah.